Hi, I'm Ray Suarez, host of Talk of the Nation on National Public Radio and author of The Old Neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Allison McGee, author of Shadow Baby and Rainlight.
Hi, I'm Harvey McKay, author of Pushing the Envelope All the Way to the Top.
Watch Author with Joe Skelly on Sunday and Tuesday nights at 9:30
on KTCI Channel 17.
He really does read them.
Hallelujah, he really does read them.
He really does read them.
He really does read them, doesn't he, girl?
Welcome to this edition of Author. I'm Joe Skelly. Today's guest grew up in mainland China during the Cultural Revolution. When he came to the U.S. in 1985 to pursue a PhD in English, he could barely speak the language. Now he's won America's highest literary award for his recent novel, Waiting, which is set in China. The 1999 National Book Award winner for fiction, Ha Jin, is our guest this half hour. Jin received his PhD in English from Studs Terkel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much,
It's
Joe.
wonderful to have you. In your biography written by Tony Parker in 1996, you said that oftentimes your life has seemed like an accretion of accidents.
It is. See, I went to law school, University of Chicago Law School. The least said about it, the better. I wasn't cut out for law. And I dreamed of Clarence Darrow. I wake up to contracts, partnership, and corporations, courses like that. I went nuts. The Depression time. Somehow I became an actor by accident in soap operas, radio soap operas. Chicago, then was the center of them. And I was always the gangster. I got that gravelly gangster voice. And I threatened Mary Marlin with fates worse than death. Mary Marlin suffered more than St. Teresa ever did. Mondays through Fridays, courtesy of Oxidol. And then
I mean, they were good readers. My father, I tell people, read a book a day his entire life, and at least that.
A book a day?
Yeah, he was a voracious reader, and he, when they moved to Friendship, Arkansas to retire, he read the entire library of Friendship, Arkansas, and then had to, he kept having to join book clubs, and he was, he bought encyclopedias when we were children, and then he read them. Every last one of them. And then we'd get these terrible questions at the dinner table, and of course we were the dumb idiot kids. What did we know? And he'd do vocabulary quizzes on us, and yeah, it was terrifying. But he was just a very smart, endless reader. So I was always around books, and I suppose psychologically one could say, well, that's it. But no one else wanted to be a writer in my family, and it's just, I felt like that was my job. And I think it is my job.
You call her the most controversial First Lady in U.S. history. Why?
Because she is the only First Lady who leaped for her pen when she disagreed with her husband. And she identified with people in want, in need, in trouble. And she wanted to make things better for all people. It really fascinates me as a biographer that Eleanor Roosevelt, who was orphaned at the age of 10, her father died of alcoholism when he was 34, and her mother died at the age of 29. She kind of turned her face to the wall. And Eleanor Roosevelt was alone, and she never had homes of her own. She lived with her grandmother in her grandmother's homes.
A Roosevelt family.
A Roosevelt family. Mm-hmm. Theodore Roosevelt, the president, was her uncle, and he really was very embarrassed and wanted to put his errant brother, Eleanor Roosevelt's beloved father, away. And he lived in exile for some of his 34 years. And Eleanor Roosevelt's relationship to him was letter writing, and this is really a very important part of the book. But it was her intention, this girl who never had a home of her own, to make sure that every single American had access to housing, affordable, decent, good housing. And one of the chapters in the book.
This is why it is so important that gay and lesbian people make themselves visible, known to their co-workers, known to their neighbors, known to their families. So you can say, look, I'm different from you in this one way, and in this way, I'm just like you. When we can know each other, across our differences, it becomes a lot more difficult to hate each other and a lot more difficult to misunderstand each other.
Whiskey, you're the devil, you're leading me astray, o'er the hills and mountains unto America. You're sweeter, stronger, decenter, you're spunkier nerte. Oh, whiskey, you're me darling, drunk or sober.
And this is in the book.
That's all in the book.
All throughout the book.
What happened in the last, I'd say, 15 years is that the genre has become the kind of quest literature of our time. And it's become the coming of age kind of book. And so it's really a very different genre. We call memoir that thing that somebody wrote looking back in the past, but we also call these books by young people that are personal stories. We call those memoirs. So I think it's really changed.
Phenomenon of snow falling on cedars unfolded in a gradual but persistent way. I'm astounded by it. It's been translated into 30 languages. It's sold 4 million copies worldwide. It's been enormously well received, a bestseller in countries around the world. And why it is that people everywhere seem to respond so powerfully to this story, I'm really at as much of a loss as anybody.
Do you think it's a murder mystery first, or more of a, a story of a racially divided period?
It's a courtroom drama, it's a murder mystery, it's a love story, it's a war story, it's a regional novel, all rolled into one. But I think...
So now I do describe myself as a religious person, but I usually call myself a freelance monotheist. I draw sustenance from all three faiths. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. I can't see any one of them as superior, but even perhaps that's not accurate. I've just completed a short biography of the Buddha and have been enthralled by some of his insights. And I think that Buddhism has a great deal to teach the monotheistic faiths.
Well, I'm just hoping our next governor of the state of Minnesota, chooses to honor literature in the ways our last couple of governors have. And besides, he's probably a fellow who'll get interested in literature himself.
Oh, he's going to write a book.
Yeah, and he's getting a bigger advance than, not just that I've ever gotten. If I add up all the advances of all the writers for all the books that I know locally, they're still not in a league with that. So the governor is kind of beginning at the top of the heap here.
How she sat there, the time right inside a place so wrong it was ready. That trim name with its dream of a bench to rest on. Her sensible coat. Doing nothing was the doing. The clean flame of her gaze carved by a camera flash. How she stood up when they bent down to retrieve her purse. That courtesy.
We want to thank Studs Terkel for being here. The new book is called The Spectator. Talk about movies and plays with those who make them. I've got a selfish question to ask you to end with. What's the best advice you can give a rookie interviewer like me?
Nothing, just listening. Well, if you have an author like you've read some of this, brush up on the person, because that's his baby or her baby, and you got to respect the person by respecting the baby. And basically just doing what you're doing, listening and encouraging. That's about the ticket.
Studs Terkel, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
It's wonderful.
That's great. Did it work out all right?
Yep.
You going to use that?
Oh, definitely.
You going to cut it up to pieces?
No editing.
Oh, good.